Have you ever met someone who walks through life quietly, without companions, yet carries a glow of peace that others cannot understand? A person who may not have 1,000 friends around them, yet carries the friendship of God within them. We live in a world where friendship is often measured by numbers, by how many people like us, follow us, or surround us. But have you noticed? Sometimes, even in a crowded room, we feel completely alone. And sometimes, in silence, when no one is around, we feel deeply connected. Why? Because true friendship begins not outside, but inside. The soul untouched by friendship is not empty, it is full. Full of God's companionship, full of inner harmony, full of self-respect, and full of a connection that no betrayal, no rejection, no loneliness can ever destroy. Tonight, let's journey together to understand what it truly means to be a soul untouched by friendship, and how this hidden treasure can become a guiding light in your life. Imagine this: you are sitting alone in your room after a long day, the phone is silent, no one is knocking at your door, and suddenly the mind starts whispering, "Why am I alone? Why is there no one around me right now?" That feeling of emptiness begins to rise. But pause for a moment and ask yourself, is this really loneliness, or is it an opportunity to meet someone much deeper, much greater? The truth is, solitude is not the absence of people, it is the presence of yourself and the divine. It is in that silence, when the world goes quiet, that you begin to hear the voice that never leaves you, the voice of God inside your heart. We often think that friendship is about having more people around us, being invited to every gathering, having a long list of contacts to call. But the reality is, you can be surrounded by 100 people and still feel invisible. You can laugh with a crowd and still feel an ache of emptiness when you return home. Why does this happen? Because loneliness is not solved by numbers, it is healed by connection. And the deepest connection is not outward, it is inward. Think about a seed. Before it can rise above the soil, before it can bloom into a beautiful tree that gives shade and fruit to others, it has to spend time buried in darkness, alone, silent, surrounded by nothing but soil. From the outside, it looks lifeless, forgotten, and unseen. But inside, miracles are happening. Roots are growing, strength is being built, life is preparing to rise. If that seed could speak, it might say, "Why am I alone down here?" But if it had the patience to trust, it would realize that the time in solitude was not punishment, but preparation. The same is true for our soul. Solitude is not a curse. It is sacred ground where we take root, where we prepare to bloom. When you sit alone in silence, instead of seeing emptiness, begin to see the opportunity to listen to your own heartbeat, to your own thoughts, and to the gentle whispers of God. This is the place where you get to ask yourself the deeper questions. What truly makes me happy? What kind of person am I becoming? What does God want me to learn from this season of my life? In the noise of the world, these questions are drowned, but in solitude they begin to surface. And the answers bring a peace that no crowd can give you. Look at some of the greatest souls who have walked this earth. Saints, sages, poets, philosophers, they all embraced moments of solitude. Why? Because they knew that silence is not empty. Silence is full, full of guidance, full of strength, full of the unseen presence of God. It is in solitude that wisdom grows. It is in solitude that creativity blossoms. It is in solitude that resilience is built. When you learn to enjoy your own company, you stop being afraid of being left out, because you realize you are never left out of God's presence. Take a simple example from daily life. Have you ever gone for a walk early in the morning when the world is still asleep? The streets are quiet, the air is fresh, and the birds are just beginning to sing. There is no noise, no distractions, just you and the rhythm of your footsteps. In that moment, don't you feel a strange kind of calmness? That calmness is the reward of solitude. You are not lonely, you are connected to something bigger than yourself. And when you carry that feeling into your day, suddenly the challenges, the complaints, the worries of life don't seem as heavy. Solitude teaches you to stop running. Many people keep rushing into friendships, relationships, or endless activities just so they don't have to face their own silence. But the irony is, running away from silence only makes the emptiness louder. When you finally stop and sit with yourself, you realize that what you feared, being alone, is actually the doorway to freedom. Because in that moment, you see that you don't need approval from outside to feel complete. You already have the eternal friendship of the divine inside you. Think of solitude like charging your phone. Your phone may have the best apps, the brightest screen, and the fastest internet, but if the battery is dead, none of it works. In the same way, you may have many friends, many responsibilities, and many dreams, but if your inner battery is empty, you will feel drained no matter what you achieve. Solitude is the charging station of the soul. Every moment spent in silence with God is like plugging into a source that never runs out. And when you step out of that solitude, you carry a glow, a calmness, and an energy that others notice, even if they don't understand it. So the next time life places you in solitude, don't rush to fill it with noise. Don't panic and think, I have no one. Instead, smile and remind yourself, I have the greatest one. Use that time to sit with your thoughts, to listen to your heart, to talk to God, or simply to breathe in the stillness. What looks like emptiness is actually fullness. What feels like isolation is actually invitation, an invitation to build the most unshakable friendship of your life, the one with your own soul and the divine. A soul untouched by friendship then is not abandoned, it is blessed. It is not lonely, it is preparing. It is not weak, it is being made strong. And when the world finally sees such a soul, it sees someone who walks not in desperation for company, but in the confidence of divine companionship. That is the power of solitude. That is the gift of being untouched by worldly friendships, yet embraced fully by God. Think about this carefully. How can we ever walk hand in hand with others if we are not first able to walk hand in hand with ourselves? We often chase after friendships, relationships, and approval, hoping they will make us feel complete. Yet, many times, we forget that the first and most important friendship is the one we form with our own self. When you are untouched by worldly friendships, life is quietly giving you a golden opportunity to cultivate this bond within. And the beauty of it is that when you truly befriend yourself, you will discover something extraordinary. You will find God hidden inside you. Self-friendship is not about arrogance, and it is not about selfishness. It is about acceptance. Imagine a dear friend coming to you after making a mistake. They feel guilty, they feel broken, and they fear you might abandon them. If you truly value that friendship, you wouldn't reject them, would you? You would forgive them, encourage them, and remind them of their worth. Now ask yourself, why do we rarely offer that same kindness to ourselves? Instead of forgiving our mistakes, we beat ourselves up. Instead of encouraging our growth, we criticize our flaws. Instead of reminding ourselves of our worth, we allow the world's opinions to dictate our value. But the soul untouched by outer friendships learns this secret. If you cannot offer yourself the compassion and loyalty you offer to others, you will always be incomplete. Let's take a simple daily life example. Imagine you're walking to work and you accidentally spill tea on your shirt. It's a small mistake, but immediately your mind starts attacking. How clumsy! Why can't you even hold a cup properly? Now, if a close friend had spilled tea, you'd probably laugh and say, "Don't worry, it happens to everyone." You'd ease their embarrassment, lighten their mood, and help them move on. Why is it that we can do that for others so easily, but struggle to do it for ourselves? Self-friendship means replacing that harsh inner voice with the voice of compassion. It means treating yourself the way you would treat your best friend, with patience, forgiveness, and encouragement. When you accept yourself, something magical happens. You begin to feel whole. And wholeness attracts the right kind of energy into your life. People can sense it. Have you ever met someone who doesn't speak much, but the moment they enter a room, they radiate calmness and confidence? That glow doesn't come from external validation, it comes from inner harmony. Such people have befriended themselves, and because of that, they naturally draw others closer. You see, when you are a stranger to yourself, you will always crave validation from outside. But when you know yourself deeply, you no longer beg for approval, you carry your own. Another layer of this self-friendship is learning to spend time alone joyfully. Many people run from their own company. They need music in their ears, people around them, constant notifications on their phones, anything to escape silence. But have you noticed how beautiful it feels when you go for a solo walk, or sit quietly with a book, or sip tea by the window and watch the rain? These are small practices of befriending yourself. They may look simple, but in those moments you tell yourself, "I enjoy my own presence. I don't need the world to fill my silence because I have God within my silence." That is powerful. Even mistakes, failures, and weaknesses become teachers when you treat yourself as a friend. Think about a child learning to walk. They stumble, they fall, they cry. If you were standing there, would you scold them for falling? No, you'd encourage them to try again. Maybe even clap when they take a step. That's how they learn. Yet, as adults, when we fall in life, we punish ourselves mercilessly. But a soul that has befriended itself understands that falling is part of learning. Every mistake is not proof of weakness, but a reminder of growth. Every failure is not the end, but a stepping stone. And through this mindset, you realize God has been gently guiding you all along, using your stumbles to shape your strength. Self-friendship also transforms how you see others. When you are at war within yourself, you unconsciously project that war onto the world. You become critical, jealous, and restless. But when you are at peace with yourself, you naturally extend that peace outward. You begin to love without clinging. You begin to give without expecting. And you begin to appreciate without comparing. Just like a cup that overflows, when your inner friendship with yourself is strong, your love for others flows naturally without effort. Here is something worth remembering: applause from the world is temporary. Today, people may cheer you. Tomorrow they may forget you. If your happiness is tied only to the sound of that applause, you will rise and fall endlessly. But the applause of your conscience, the gentle pat on your own back, the inner smile that says, "I am proud of myself and God is proud of me," that is permanent, and that applause echoes even in silence. So when life seems to place you in a space where friendships are few, do not see it as emptiness. See it as a sacred call to build the most important relationship you will ever have, the relationship with yourself. When you honor yourself, forgive yourself, nurture your strengths, and walk in alignment with your conscience. You are never truly alone, because in that self, God lives. And in that self friendship, you find the courage, clarity, and contentment that no amount of external friendships could ever provide. The soul untouched by outer friendship is not deprived. It is refining its inner friendship, discovering its divine companion, and building a foundation that no rejection, no betrayal, no loss can ever destroy. It walks with dignity, not because the world applauds, but because it has learned to applaud itself. In harmony with the eternal applause of God, there is a beautiful secret hidden in the life of a soul untouched by worldly friendships. It learns detachment. And we must understand what this really means, because detachment is often misunderstood. People think detachment is coldness, indifference, or a lack of love. But true detachment is not about rejecting love. It is about releasing expectation. It is the art of loving without chains, giving without fear, and walking without clinging. A soul that has not tied itself to the constant need for friends learns this deeper wisdom, that the only friend who never abandons, who never betrays, who never grows tired of us is God. And once you discover that eternal friend, you stop being enslaved by temporary ones. Think of a river. It flows tirelessly, offering water to plants, to animals, to people. It gives life wherever it goes, but it never clings to the banks. It doesn't stop and say, "These rocks must stay with me forever, otherwise I cannot continue." No, it flows, and in that flow, it blesses everything along the way. This is what detachment looks like. It is love without possession. It is kindness without the need for constant return. It is learning to live in such a way that your heart is free, not bound by chains of must and should. When a soul becomes untouched by worldly friendships, it begins to love like the river, freely, purely, and without fear. Look at our daily lives. How often do we tie ourselves up with expectations? We say, if my friend doesn't call me today, it means they don't care. Or, if they forget my birthday, then I am not important to them. These expectations slowly build walls of disappointment, and those walls eventually suffocate the very love we were hoping to protect. We become angry, bitter, and hurt, not because of love itself, but because of the weight of our own conditions. But a detached soul has learned to let go of these conditions. It still loves, it still cares, but it does not demand, and that freedom keeps the heart light and joyful. Take a daily example. Imagine you do something kind for a colleague. Perhaps you stay late to help them finish their work. The next day, they don't even acknowledge your effort. What happens? Instantly, the mind begins to grumble. How ungrateful! I helped them, and they didn't even say thank you. And you carry that irritation throughout your day. Now, imagine the same situation, but with detachment. You help your colleague, not because you need gratitude, but because service itself gives you joy. When they don't thank you, it doesn't matter. You smile and move on, because your fulfillment came not from their response, but from the act itself. That is the strength of detachment. You give because it aligns with your soul, not because you are fishing for reward. This way of living also protects you from deep pain. Relationships, friendships, and human bonds are beautiful, but they are fragile. People change, circumstances change, and what feels eternal today can vanish tomorrow. If your happiness is chained to permanence in a world that is temporary, you will suffer again and again. But if your heart is rooted in detachment, you can still cherish people deeply, while knowing that if they leave, you will not collapse. You can grieve their absence, yes, but you will not lose yourself. because you are never clinging, you are flowing. Think of a tree in a storm. If it clings rigidly, refusing to bend, the storm will break it. But if it sways with the wind, flexible and free, it survives. Detachment makes your soul like that tree, resilient, flexible, unshaken by the storms of life. It does not mean you don't feel. It means you don't cling. It does not mean you don't love. It means you don't lose yourself in attachment. It does not mean you are empty. It means you are full enough to not demand. The soul, untouched by worldly friendships, also discovers that detachment allows deeper trust in God. When you no longer depend entirely on people for your happiness, you begin to lean naturally on the divine. And this leaning is not fragile, it is powerful. Because unlike people, God never abandons, never grows bored, never misjudges you. In your quietest moments, when no one answers your calls, when no one checks on you, you will feel that invisible presence reminding you, I am here. And suddenly, the need to cling to others weakens, replaced by the joy of resting in God's companionship. Detachment also brings an extraordinary kind of courage. When you are not tied down by the fear of losing people, you become fearless in your authenticity. You can speak your truth, walk your path, and make decisions that honor your conscience, because your happiness is not chained to whether others approve. You are no longer enslaved by the thought, what if they leave me? Because even if they do, you know you are never truly alone. God is walking with you. Think about the ocean. It welcomes every river, every wave, every drop of rain, but it does not cling to them. Rivers merge, waves crash, rain falls, and still the ocean remains whole. In the same way, a detached soul welcomes people, cherishes their presence, enjoys their company, but remains whole even when they depart. That wholeness is not cold, it is radiant. It is a wholeness that says, I celebrate you, but I don't need to imprison you. I love you, but my love is not a chain. It is freedom. So when life leaves you untouched by the constant friendships the world celebrates, do not see it as a wound. See it as an initiation into the sacred art of detachment. Learn to love like the river, sway like the tree, and rest like the ocean. Then you will know a joy that cannot be broken, a freedom that cannot be stolen, and a companionship with God that cannot be lost. That is the gift of detachment, and that is the strength of a soul untouched by worldly friendship. Resilience is one of the most powerful qualities a soul untouched by worldly friendship develops. When external support crumbles, when people misunderstand you, when those you counted on step away, something remarkable can happen. You discover the unshakable strength that comes from within. This kind of resilience is not loud, not boastful, it is quiet, steady, and deeply rooted in the companionship of God. It is like a flame that does not go out even when storms rage around it. Imagine a tree standing in the middle of a field. Storms come, winds howl, rains lash against its branches. Sometimes leaves are stripped away, sometimes branches break, but the tree remains standing. Why? Because its roots are deep. Its stability is not above the ground, where everyone can see, but beneath the soil, where no one notices. In the same way, resilience does not come from what the world sees. Your possessions, your status, or your circle of friends. It comes from what is hidden: your faith, your trust in God, and your willingness to bend but not break. Every one of us faces seasons when support disappears. You might go through a time when the people you thought would stand with you vanish. You might try to explain yourself, only to be misunderstood. You might extend your hand for help, only to find no one reaching back. In such moments, the human heart feels abandoned. But this is also when resilience begins to grow. Just like muscles grow when they are stretched, resilience grows when you are tested. A soul untouched by worldly friendship learns that even when others are absent, God is present. Even when no one else applauds, God whispers encouragement. Even when the world questions you, God silently affirms you. That awareness gives you strength to stand firm when others would collapse. Let's take an everyday example. Imagine a student preparing for an important exam. Their friends promise to study together, to support each other. But as the pressure increases, those friends get busy with their own worries, leaving the student alone with their books. At first, disappointment sets in. They promised, but they didn't show up. Yet, in that loneliness, the student digs deeper, studies harder, pushes beyond their limits. On exam day, they walk in with quiet confidence, not because of support from friends, but because of the resilience they built within themselves. Life works the same way. Sometimes people leave you so you can find your own strength. Sometimes the absence of outer support is the invitation to awaken inner power. Resilience also means learning the art of swaying instead of snapping. A tree that is too rigid will be broken by the storm, but the one that bends with the wind survives. In life, people may criticize you, reject you, or abandon you. If you resist reality, if you fight every loss, you will only break yourself with bitterness. But if you learn to sway, to adapt, to let go, to accept, you remain unbroken. This does not mean you become weak. On the contrary, flexibility is a sign of strength. It is the wisdom to endure change without losing your essence. There is a simple but powerful lesson in water. Pour water into a glass, it takes the shape of a glass. Pour it into a bowl, it takes the shape of a bowl. Water never complains, "Why have you put me here?" It simply flows and adapts, yet it never loses its identity. No matter where you place it, it remains water. Resilient souls live like water. They may face change, they may lose people, they may walk alone, but they never lose themselves. Their core, rooted in God, remains unshaken. Resilience also shines in silence. The world often confuses resilience with toughness or loud defiance. But real resilience is quieter. It is the ability to smile when things go wrong. It is the patience to wait when answers don't come. It is the inner voice that says, "This too shall pass." It does not need to shout or prove itself, because it knows that strength does not come from noise, but from faith. And that faith is born when you realize you are never truly alone, because God's hand holds you even when no human hand does. Take a personal reflection. Think of a time you were hurt, when someone's words or actions left you broken. At first, the pain was unbearable. But as time passed, you survived. You woke up the next day and the next and the next. Slowly, the wound healed. Today, when you look back, you may even smile at how strong you became because of that pain. That is resilience. It is not about avoiding storms, but about learning to dance in the rain. It is not about having no scars, but about wearing your scars as proof that you did not give up. A soul untouched by friendship develops this resilience naturally because it is not leaning on external crutches. It learns to stand on its own feet, not in arrogance, but in trust. It becomes unshakable, not because it has no pain, but because it has found an anchor deeper than pain. People around may wonder, how do you endure so much without breaking? And the answer is simple, because I am not standing alone. My roots are in God. Resilience is not just survival, it is transformation. It turns wounds into wisdom, losses into lessons, and solitude into strength. And when you carry such resilience, you no longer fear being left behind. because you know that wherever life takes you, you can endure. You no longer fear change because you know you can bend without breaking. You no longer fear rejection because you know you are already accepted by the one who matters most. So when life tests you, when people walk away, when misunderstandings cloud your path, remember the tree, remember the river, remember the water, and most of all, remember that resilience is not found in the crowd. It is born in the quiet companionship between your soul and God. That is the unshakable foundation that no storm can ever destroy. There is a kind of beauty that shines only when the heart is free from the need for recognition. A soul untouched by worldly friendships learns to serve without seeking return, and in that silent service lies its deepest joy. Many of us spend our lives giving with one eye fixed on what will come back, appreciation, attention, or at least a thank you. But true service, the kind that nourishes the soul, is born when we give simply because giving feels right, because it flows from the purity of our heart, and because we know God is watching even if the world is not. Think about a candle. It burns itself to give light. It doesn't ask, will anyone appreciate me? Will anyone applaud me for brightening their path? No, it simply shines because shining is its nature. That is what service is meant to be. An offering of light, not a trade of favors. A soul that is not entangled in worldly friendships discovers this naturally. It is not trapped by the thought, if I do this, will people like me more? Instead, it serves because love itself is fulfilling. The act of kindness becomes the reward, not the applause that may or may not follow. Look at everyday life. Perhaps you hold the door open for someone in a hurry. They rush past without even noticing your gesture. In that moment, the ego feels a sting. Couldn't they at least say thank you? But imagine if instead you smile and think, I didn't do it for a thank you. I did it because helping feels good. Instantly, your heart feels lighter. The act itself gave you joy. The lack of response doesn't steal that joy because it was never dependent on it. This is how silent service works. It uplifts you even when unnoticed by others. Another example, parents caring for their children. A mother wakes in the middle of the night to feed her baby. A father works long hours to provide for his family. They don't stop and ask the child, will you remember this? Will you repay me for this? They give without counting because love overflows naturally. And yet, how often do we approach our own acts of kindness like transactions? We keep a hidden ledger. I did this for you, so you should do that for me. That ledger only creates disappointment because life rarely balances in that way. A soul that serves without return tears up that ledger and instead says, I give because God has given me so much. I serve because service itself is worship. The joy of such service is unmatched.